keyboard on this computer. Well, Andre, thank you so much for joining me on the ODAT Chad podcast.
It's my pleasure being here. Thank you for
Oh,
having me.
yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. A mutual friend of ours made the introduction, so thank you, Craig Hanley, for introducing me to you. You know, when I was doing my research on who you are and all the work that you do, I was like, oh, holy crap, this guy is so busy. I can't believe all the stuff that you're involved in. I mean, you're a TEDx speaker. You wrote the book, Ambassador of Hope, Turning Poverty and Prison into a Purpose-Driven Life. I saw that you were a Harvard Law School Fellowship recipient. Pretty amazing. So coming from nothing to achieving all these things. Wow. So what I thought we would do is I'll give you about 20, 30 minutes to share your story. And then maybe the second half of the discussion, we'll talk about solutions and ways that people can connect with you and learn from you. How's that?
Definitely. I don't know if I need 30 minutes, but we can go through.
Whatever. Yeah. I have 1,000 questions to ask you. So
I'd rather get to the questions.
Oh, really? Okay.
Definitely.
You know what's funny is as I changed my format just a tiny little bit because I was getting feedback that people didn't want me to interrupt my guests. But if you're up for a discussion,
I'm up for discussion. I mean,
okay, we'll do it.
You know what your audience wants to hear. You know what your audience is going to benefit from. So for me to sit on here and just say, hey, I can tell you my life story, that's great. I don't believe my story by itself is going to change anybody's life. I believe my story might inspire somebody to want to change. It might motivate somebody to consider change, but now they need the concrete steps to actually enact change. So I don't want to spend 50 minutes telling them about my life that'll motivate them, then they don't get the steps that they need to move forward. So the steps that they need are far greater and more important than my personal journey, in my opinion. So I want to motivate them and inspire them to take the first step. But we definitely want to get them action steps that they can do for part 2 through 10.
Got it. We will definitely do that. So let's just, I'm going to have you just give us a brief overview. How about that? And then I'll pepper you with some questions along the way.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, I was born in Boston, Massachusetts. My mom had 6 kids. Her first husband went to prison. My dad was a local hustler that she was with. And 6 kids, mom and dad, and that's what life was, except for my dad had a habit of beating up my mom. So we went through the domestic violence scenarios, all the drama with that, and it was just a tough time because I didn't know as a young kid that this wasn't normal. And it was normal for me because it's the only house I lived in. Eventually, we get old enough to go to school. We're in like the mid-'70s in Boston, Massachusetts, and a federal judge signed a law saying black kids and white kids will go to school together. But nobody called me and said, hey, Andre, for this to work, you're going to get rocks thrown at you. They're going to call you niggers. They're going to call you spade chucker. They're just going to torment you for the next 3 months of your life. You're going to be tormented by white people. And you just need to brave through this so we can make the world a better place. Nobody called me. And sure enough, one day coming home from school, those kids lined up and they threw rocks at us. They threw names at us. And we were tormented for like 3 months. It was just a thing that happened and a thing that was. And the worst part about it wasn't that it just happened to me. It had happened to my father when he was a kid in Virginia growing up, where kids would throw rocks and names at them. And again, for him, it was just the way it was. Fast forward, my mom puts dad out. The kids go away with the rocks. So now you got a single mom, 6 kids living in a city. I think we've all seen that movie. We move around. We find a new place. I go back to school. I'm in the 3rd grade now. I'm illiterate. I can't read, write, or count. And back in the 70s, a black kid who couldn't read, write, and count wasn't a bad thing. They just had a thing called a dummy class. Stick you in a room at the end of the hall, they close the door, call it a day. Luckily for me, there was a teacher who pulled me out of that class and started teaching me my learning style. And she said, you're not a dummy, you just learn differently. And she took the time to walk me through the tenets of my style of learning. And at the end of that year, she said, just don't let nobody take this from you. Keep going. Middle school, we find out we're poor because we don't have the cool clothes, the designer name stuff. Kids start giving us a hard time. Me and my brothers and my sisters, it's just tough. So for me, a friend of mine suggested we sell weed in the park after school to make money. And I did it not to be cool, to be fashionable, to be tough. I got tired of kids making fun of me. So I sold drugs in the park after school to make money to buy the cool designer clothes. And it worked. I bought the clothes and kids started making fun of me. And the biggest thing that I ever did with any of that money that I made in the park was I could pay for my own lunch. I was a free and reduced lunch kid my whole life. When I could walk through the cafeteria and pay for my own lunch, it was the most empowering thing I've ever done at that age. So now I'm in the street, I'm on this track. Along the way, my 6th grade teacher gave me a trumpet because I was in band. She put me in band, she gave me a trumpet. When it came time to graduate to high school, she came back to me and she told me that I was a gifted musician. I needed to go to a magnet school and not the local school. And I didn't want to go to the magnet school. I want to go where my friends went. But she insisted. I went to a magnet school to play the trumpet in the band. When I got there, it was all nerds in the band and then me. So I joined the band. I'm in the band. I'm doing it in the morning. In the afternoon, I hang out with the tough kids. Band kids in the morning, tough kids in the afternoon. Finally, the tough kids challenged me on, why do you have this box and what are you doing in band with the nerds? You need to be with us. And they said, hey, either the band or us. And I didn't want to be by myself. I couldn't tell my friends no. And so I quit the band. And I chose my friends, if that's what you want to call them at the time. And I'll tell you, growing up poor was horrible, but people have done it. Growing up without a dad was horrible, but people have done it. Growing up in the inner city is tough, but people have done it. But trying to grow up without a dream, it's not going to happen. Because that dream is the dream is the thing that propels you to where you're going to be and where you're going to go. It's your why for walking away from things. It's your why for working hard. It's your why for everything. And I didn't have a why anymore. So I just drifted. And one day I found myself in court at 18, and the judge gave me a bunch of time, 7 to 10, 2 9 to 10s, 2 10s, 2 15 to 20s, and a 5. They sent me to prison and they dropped me off. And when I get there, the worst part was it was a reunion of all my friends from the dummy class, all my friends from the principal's office, all my friends from juvie probation. They were all there waiting for me. They said, hey, Dre, what took you so long? We knew you were coming. And for the next 6 years, I just participated in all things criminal, all things prison. I was, whatever it was happening, I was 100% all in on it. And I did that for 6 years. And at the end of 6 years, I amassed a reputation. I was a boss or whatever you want to call me. And I thought I was winning because I'd come into this system and I dominated it. I came into the system and I made a name for myself and I was winning. And then I had an epiphany that I was really not winning, but I was the king of nowhere. And that I was just in the middle of some dirt road in some rural town in a penitentiary. And that's not winning. So I came up with a plan to do something different. I said, I'm going to go home, go to Harvard, be successful. All my friends thought I was crazy. My parents thought I went crazy. My grandmother thought I went crazy. And I decided that, you know something? I got to do this by myself. The best and the worst thing happened when I told people what I wanted to do. The worst part was nobody believed me. They didn't think it was possible for me to go to Harvard. And the best part was nobody believed me that I couldn't go to Harvard, because when they all told me they didn't believe me, it made me do it by myself. Had any of my friends told me they believed in my plan, I'd have tried to take them with me. And that would have guaranteed I'd have failed. So because nobody believed me, I went by myself. And I went back to school, got a GED, went to the law library, taught myself the law, started going to anger management, started going to self-help groups. And I'm just working on everything I can to make myself better. And then I had a friend, his name was Gordon Haas. He took me to AA. I said, dude, I don't drink. Why you take me to AA? He said, sit down, man, be quiet. I go to AA and they say, hi, my name is John. I'm alcoholic, that whole nine. I'm like, why am I here? And he explained to the group, Andre has anger issues. And the leader of the group said, Andre, when you're going to hear us talk about alcohol, when you hear us talk about alcohol, substitute that for anger. Then he took me to NA. I said, man, I don't do drugs. He said, just be quiet. And I substituted anger for drugs. I went to Big Book. I went to 12 Steps. And I substituted their issue for my issue. And for the last 8 years of my sentence, I went to AA, 12 Steps, Big Book, every self-help group there was. And I would substitute their stuff for my stuff. And it was the most welcoming, open community that I participated in my time. I went through a lot of programs, but those guys didn't have to receive me. They could have said, hey, he's not one of us. But they said, he has issues and we're going to help him. And they opened the doors to me. And when I came home after 14 years, I started working and helping people. So I started working with black boys first, 12 to 15, because I understood why they were going to jail. Then they asked me to work with girls. I didn't know anything about girls, but I had the same girls, 12 to 16. They were going through molestation, prostitution, domestic violence, self-esteem issues. It was like crazy. I started helping them. And they asked me to help white kids. I'm like, white kids? Why am I going to do white kids? I don't know anything about being white. They do drugs. They drink. They have sex. They have bullies. They do self-mutilation. They cut their arms. Their parents ignore them too. I didn't think white kids had it bad. I grew up watching Leave It to Beaver, Partridge Family, Brady Bunch. None of them white kids had problems by the end of the show. When I was in jail, I watched 90210. None of those kids had problems at the end of the show. So I thought the white kids in the real world were like the white kids on TV. Not. So I started helping white kids too. I said, I'll help anybody who calls me. I've been to Guatemala, Saudi Arabia, Costa Rica, Australia, Sweden, Germany, France, Belgium, London, Canada, Mexico, wherever they call me, Trinidad, Bahamas, wherever they call me, I just started showing up. I said, if you call me, I'll show up. That was my motto. And they called me, I show up. And sometimes it was for gangs. Sometimes it was for opioids and drugs. I started working with white kids in the suburbs because all these kids were just dying from drug overdoses. And the problem that I saw were the suburbs were not geared and trained in how to deal with substance abuse. So if you get high in the inner city, there's thousands of people who are addicts before you walking around every day. There are thousands of people in this city who have city jobs, state jobs, county jobs, who've dealt with addictions every day. In the suburbs, the police don't deal with addicts every day. The library doesn't deal with addicts every day. The schools don't deal with addicts every day. There's no self-help group or AA anonymous class down at the local building. So it's like shunned in the suburbs. So if you get high in the suburbs and they find out, they say, shh, they ship you off to Utah for 6 weeks. Yeah. And you come back and they say you was visiting your aunt. Don't ever say you were getting high. And then you don't have the community support. So these kids are on an island by themselves and it just doubles down on their trauma. So I started going into the white communities in the suburbs and helping them understand how to make the transition. And the thing that made me effective in the suburbs was, one, I didn't look like their parents. Oftentimes when the suburban kids have a problem, they rush them into a doctor who kind of looks like their parents and sounds like their parents. I walk in a 6'2" black ex-gang member from prison. I look nothing. They're like, my parents know you? That's the first. They know you? My parents actually know you. And because you don't look anything like them. Then I start not just talking, but listening. My key thing is not talking. You might hear me talking now and they tell you I'm a motivational speaker. My number one superpower is listening. And I listen to these young people, whether in the suburbs or in the city, whether in the country or they're in the prison cell. I listen to them, I hear them, and I affirm them, and then I walk them from where they are. I don't try to tell them where they should be or how they should feel. I accept that who they are and what they are, where they are, and I help them transition. And I started training parents in the suburbs on how to understand to engage your kid, how to understand the culture, because the drug culture and the street culture is so far removed from the suburbs that they're like, what's really going on? What's in the music? They're looking in all the wrong places. So I started educating suburban parents on how to engage and understand. The same way I took city parents and taught them how to engage. And for the last 20 years, that's what I've been doing. And so I got a fellowship at Harvard. I've been at London Business School for over 20 years doing trainings. I work with a great friend of mine out in Phoenix, Joe Polish, whose sole purpose is to help heal people with addictions in the humanities space. And so I've made connections with folks who are really into this movement about helping people the right way, not just because it's the right thing to do, but they deserve the best of the best and the opportunity to live their best life. And for the last 20 years, that's what I've been doing. And 2 years ago, I got called to come to South Carolina because there was a riot at one of the prisons. 7 people got murdered and they needed a solution. And somebody came up with the bright idea that Andre Norman is a solution to the violence problem in the South Carolina prisons. So I came down, I teamed up with the director, of programs and operations, and we've put together a program called the Academy of Hope, and it's designed to reduce violence inside the prisons. And it's been a collaboration between the Department of Corrections, myself, and community agencies to try to make this system better. And that's the objective. And I've been living in South Carolina in the woods next to the prison for like the last 18 months. And it was a good thing when COVID kicked because I was like in a safe zone. Right. But other than that, we're out here and we just want to help people have the understanding on how they can do and be better. And then George Floyd died. And George Floyd started a whole nother conversation around white, black. Well, where's the white, black conversation? So here we are now. Where black and white, black, we can have a conversation, but how do we actually heal and become one community, one country, going in one direction? Because I believe what ails some of the black communities, white folks have in the suburbs. And what ails the suburban communities, we have answers for in the inner cities. And if we could ever get on one page with clear communication, we could actually help each other and we all would benefit. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
That was amazing. Did you see me writing furiously? Oh my gosh, I was taking so many notes. Thank you so much for sharing all that. That's an amazing story. Gosh, I hardly know where to start, but one of the things that you talked about, I'm very 12-step oriented. And, there was this old timer in one of the meetings that used to say, it doesn't matter what the problem is. The solution is simple. The solution is spiritual, and the solution has nothing to do with the problem. It doesn't matter if it's anger, drugs, sex, whatever. The solution is typically the same, about the introspection and doing all that healing work. And when I was doing some research on you, it sounded like you had a mentor that helped guide you. But I'm curious, because where did you come up with this idea of this big dream? Like, where did that come from? Of going to Harvard and doing all that stuff, where'd that come from?
My big dream came from, I was in solitary confinement and I came to the understanding that I wanted to go home. That was the first thing. I said, I want to go. It was 6 years in before I said the words, I want to go home. And the first thing that I did is I looked around at all the different groups, the whites, the blacks, the Spanish, the Asians, the kitchen workers, the guys in the church, the guys who played chess, the guys who played checkers. I looked at everybody. And everybody went home and everybody came back. So simply getting free didn't work for people. Mm-hmm. The act of getting free did not work and does not work. 70% of people who get free go back. That's a fact. Those are the stats in the U.S. Department of whoever will tell you 70% of people recidivate, which means go back to jail within 3 years. So getting free doesn't work. So I was able to recognize freedom isn't the way out. And I said, well, who doesn't come to prison? Because free people evidently do. And I said, successful people don't come to prison. I said, well, if I can become successful, I won't go to prison. Now I said, well, where do successful people come from? I deduced college. So I picked a school, and Harvard's the only school I knew the name of.
Oh, really? That was the only one you knew of?
I had no interaction with any other school other than Harvard. I mean, I used to ride my skateboard in front of them. I'm from Boston.
Oh, did you? That's amazing. Okay, so you get this idea, and I love how your mind works, because in some of the other interviews I heard you in, you think differently, right? It's like you had, the stories that you tell about being in the streets and thinking strategically about, I heard you talking about going to different neighborhoods and robbing other people that were outside of your neighborhood.
Of course.
I mean, you were like strategic about how you've always had like this strategic mind. But it sounds like you had a teacher that saw potential in you. She saw that you were actually smart, but you needed to learn a different way. What was her methodology of teaching you?
Two things. Well, Miss Oliver in the third grade, I don't remember her methodology, but she loved me. And her loving me was the way to get my attention, I guess. She put the time in, she put the effort in, she held my hand, she didn't judge me, and I responded. When I was in prison, my first mentor, his name was Natan Schaefer. He was an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. And I happened into his class because there was a guy on my unit getting bullied one time, and I hate bullies. Mm-hmm. So I stopped him from getting bullied. I stood in, and he thanked me. And I would see him periodically. He would say hi to me. I'd say hi back. He had no understanding I was one of the top bosses in the prison. He was just, I'm the guy that helped him. So fast forward, I'm walking through the program building, and I see Bob. So I go in and say hi to Bob, and he's sitting with the next guy, and he introduces me to Natan. I said, well, what are y'all doing? He said, we're studying. I said, well, can I study with you? And he said, yeah. So I didn't notice the hat or the white shirt or the tefillin or the black suit. That didn't mean anything to me. There was no Jews in my neighborhood. So it definitely wasn't any rabbis. So I just started studying, and I found out through my friends that I was studying with a rabbi. I didn't know what it meant.
Funny. What was he doing in jail?
Huh?
What was he doing in prison? Was he just coming to teach?
he was a rabbi. He was a chaplain. So he came in
Oh,
for the
okay.
guy that I saved was Jewish. The guy
Oh,
Bob that I saw from
I
being
see.
bullied was Jewish. So
Got
he
it.
was going to Jewish services. When I saw him that night, I walked by the door. I said, man, go say hi to Bob. I went in to say hi to Bob just to be polite, and he introduced me to Natan. And Natan
Wow.
became and is my number one mentor, my number one guy. He taught me
Aw.
responsibility. He taught me ethics. He taught me servanthood. He taught me accountability, how to give back. And he taught me how to be human. All of my life, I was taught attack, attack, don't cry, attack, no mercy. That was what I was taught. Natan taught me something drastically different. And I appreciate him for teaching me how to be human. Because a lot of times you get a lot of young guys in the inner city or wherever, they're taught attack, 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 don't blink, attack some more. And that's what he taught me.
Yeah.
And he taught me the opposite. So
Where did all the anger come from? Do you think it was because of all the abuse and trauma that you experienced your whole life, even up to prison?
see, this is the thing I want to make clear for folks. It's technically anger, yes. All day it's anger. But in my life and in my time, it's just how I live. Because I grew up in violence. I grew up in trauma. I grew up in not having. So I didn't see myself as anything other than this is who I am. This is what is. So as I'm going through my day, I don't think I'm angry. I think that you're soft. I don't think I'm angry. You're soft.
You're
You're
soft.
weak. I'm saying you're weak. Everybody else is weak in my mind because this is normal. At 2 years old, I'm watching domestic violence. At 8 years old, I'm being stoned by white people. At 12 years old, I'm being, tortured. So this is normal to me. This
Right.
isn't abnormal. Abnormal becomes normal in a lot of scenarios. And I walk around, I'm thinking my attitude is normal. Your
Right.
attitude is abnormal. Why
Right.
wouldn't you punch somebody in the face? What's wrong with you?
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems reasonable. Okay.
see, it is. It was reasonable. It's like it was unreasonable
Oh,
for you. He did that to you. You didn't smack him. What was you thinking? What's wrong? And if you didn't have that attitude, we thought you were weak, and then you became a victim.
okay. Scary. Yeah, I don't think I would have
Prisons
been.
generally are scary.
Yeah, I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have done very well. Okay, so 6 years in, and it's like, did something happen? Did you have like a moment of clarity? Or you talked about being in solitary confinement. Was that what you would consider your rock bottom, that you decided to turn things around?
I wouldn't call it rock bottom. What happened? I was in solitary confinement. I had a situation where I was charged with 2 attempted murders and convicted. They put me in solitary for 2.5 years. And I was in the process of about attacking other prisoners. That was my process and not thought that day. But before I could, God spoke to me. And
Hmm.
God said, Andre, don't do this, life choice. And I was like, God, why are you bothering me? See, all of
Hmm.
my life, there's been no God. When mothers get beat up, there was no God. When kids threw rocks at me, no God. When my dad walked out, and I just got a list of times I can say there ain't no God in this world, so you might want to go see your people. And he just kept saying, life choice, don't do this. And in the end, I didn't do it. I walked back to my cell. I said, well, if I can't be a psychopath, there's no point being in jail, which led me to believe, okay, well, I want to be free. Then I realized free didn't work. Then I went to successful and I started down that path.
Right. It sounds like, all the self-help stuff you did. It's like, I don't know if you had this experience, but when I was sort of in the grips of my own addiction and drama, um, I got a little bit of hope from some information. Like I got a hold some life-changing information, right? It was the first time, I think it was like a Tony Robbins thing where it was like, oh, if you change your mind, you change your life. That was kind of like the seed, right?
Right.
And that sent me on a journey. So it sounds like you went on a similar journey when you started going to all the 12-step classes and anger management classes. What did you learn about yourself doing all that
I
internal
learned that the thing with me that I needed to do was actually work. I needed to ask for help. I needed to stop just being angry. Being angry was just living in my past and not dealing with it. So there's a lot of things I grew up with, I just didn't deal with. So it sat with me and they weren't going to go away by themselves. A lot of people are walking around in pain and frustrated and angry and upset, but they're not doing anything about it, but living in it. And it's not going to go away by itself. So I realized by going to these groups that it took work. to get this stuff out of my life. I couldn't wait it out, run it out, or scream it out. I had to actually work it out. I had to do internal work on the things that were ailing and bothering me. And that was the only way this stuff was ever going to leave.
Right. So having had that experience and now you're on a mission to help as many people as you can, maybe we can transition into some of like the actionable steps like you were talking about. Like what are some of the things that you teach now to help people maybe who have been to prison and are getting out? What are some of the action steps that you're talking about?
My first thing is you have to understand who you are. Before you go to anything else, you have to understand who you are as an individual. Who are you? And once you understand who you are, then you have to understand, okay, how did I get here? Now you understand how I got here. Now understand, where do I want to go? Then you get to, what do I need to do to get there? And it's stages and steps. It's never just snap your fingers and it is. So it's like, my first thing is, who am I? I'm Black. I'm in prison. I'm in a gang. I don't read well. My comprehension is bad. My anger is horrible. I just started going down a list of things that I was. Then at the end of that, I said, okay, now, where did I come from? I came from a violent home, the inner city. This is where I came from. Now, where do I want to go? I want to go to Harvard. That's where I want to go. Now, how do I get from here to there? I start drafting my plan out. GED, law library, self-help groups, anger management. And those are the stages and steps that I worked on to get from where I was to where I wanted to go.
Tell me a little bit more about how you learned to resolve some of that anger that you were carrying around.
It's not so much you resolve it, is you come to grips with it. So I can't undo what happened to my mom. I can't undo kids making fun of me. I can't undo being thrown in a dummy class. What I can do is say, it wasn't my fault. It was out of my control. It's in my past, and it doesn't make me who I am. So when I attach the feelings of being in a dummy class or the feelings of being felt less than because I didn't have cool stuff, those are the emotions that kick in, / we call them triggers in treatment. Those are my triggers. So when I say, you know something, I was put in a dummy class, that wasn't my fault. Those are teachers who should have stood up for me. So I'm not going to carry the guilt of their mistake. And we were poor. We were on a free lunch list. That was horrible. But I'm not going to define myself by my mother's lack of income when I was in the 6th grade. That's not going to, for the rest of my life, be the reason I don't succeed. Because in the 6th grade, we couldn't afford to buy our own lunches. It was horrible. And it's like accepting what was. I don't like it. I'll never like it. They're not good memories, but they need to become memories, not nows. See, oftentimes our memories are our nows. And that's what people get tripped. Mom did something to me, dad did something to me, the neighbor did something to me, or whatever happened to me, I'm still reliving. So I acted out in the 6th grade because I wanted to fix what was wrong in the 6th grade. Well, I'm 53 now. I shouldn't be trying to fix what happened in the 6th grade at 53.
Right.
So whatever happened to you at 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, it happened. It's unfortunate, but it happened and it didn't kill you. So all the things that happened to me, as awful as they were, it did not kill me. So I can't spend the rest of my life being sunken because in the 6th grade kids made fun of me. I never like it.
Right.
But I have to let it go. It happened, but I let it go.
You let it go. It's interesting that you do. I know you work at the prison a lot and you work with drug addicts and alcoholics. What type of work do you do with them to help them? I mean, obviously you're trying to reduce that 70% rate of people who go back to prison. What kind of work do you do to help them not go back to prison?
The first thing I have to do is get them to be in charge of their own life. Now that's not take over the prison and become prison guards or anything, but they have to come to a place where they see themselves as powerful enough to govern their own lives. Most times when I deal with people, especially people who have addiction problems, they put the power of their lives in somebody else's hands. It's up to somebody else what they do or don't do. If the friend says, let's go to the bar, they go to the bar. If the boyfriend says, let's do a line, they do a line. I need them to be in charge of their lives. That's step one. Because at some point, they're going to be somewhere and they're going to have to make a decision. And if I don't empower them to be in charge of their own lives, whatever circumstances they're in will dictate. So I try to teach independence first.
So taking responsibility, independence, taking your power back.
Taking your power back 100%. You need to become in charge of your life as soon as possible. And we have to first discover why you're not anymore. Who did you give your power to? So when I was a young man, my dad left. And I didn't understand it because I was 8 or 9 years old. And looking back, I spent the next 25 years of my life trying to replace him with other people. So when I finally said, my dad's not coming and I can't replace him and I'm going to be in charge of my life, I stopped trying to fill that role. Because every time I try to fill that role, I was picking bad people to play the role of dad. And if I make you dad, then you have authority and power over me. Because that's what dads do. They instruct the kid. So I kept trying to replace dad, and all my replacements were giving me bad advice.
Right.
And once I got my thinking right and I became independent, I could pick a dad like Natan. I can pick a dad like Pat Dempsey. I could pick a dad who was credible and solid instead of trying to pick a dad who was in the lane that I was in. When I was in the lane of negativity, I picked a dad in that space.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of people who are struggling with addiction, they'll pick a mentor in the space that they're in. Not a positive mentor, but a negative mentor.
Right. Okay. So finding a positive role model that can help you emulate what they do.
Yes. Definitely need a positive role model. The positive role model piece, I say to people, the things that matter, I call them the C's. 1, you need consistency. The role model must be consistent. 2, they must have capacity to handle your issues because you might have a lot of stuff.
Most
3,
people do.
So capacity, consistency, they must care about you. They must care about you. 4, they need to be competent. You don't want any incompetent people trying to govern your life. And 5, they need to have courage because they need to help you fight through a lot of stuff. The last C, which I don't even count, is color. I don't care if you're my color or not. People put color at the top of the list, and I think it should be not even on the list. If you care, capacity, caring, courage, and that's all that matters. If you happen to be the same color, cool. But if you're not, it's okay. Because my top 2 mentors, one's an Orthodox Jewish rabbi, the other's a Catholic volunteer. Both white, both from the suburbs. But I don't need to learn how to be black. I don't need to learn how to be cool.
Yeah.
I'm black and I'm cool. So I didn't need that. What I needed was caring, capacity, consistency, courage, and to be challenged.
It's so amazing how your values changed, right? It was all you went from it sounded like you went from like external validation to valuing things that can't be seen, like caring, just even having a teacher at such a young age who demonstrated love. I mean, love really is the answer.
All day. But as you're looking for your person, I had a guy I work with. I was in Phoenix and I got called to say, Andre, there's a family, there's a son, he's on drugs, he needs help. So the people I was working with, it's covered. Everything's paid. I called the father. I said, listen, I got your information and this is my name. This is what I do. I'm going to fly to California. I'm going to help you for free. I'm going to go out. I'm going to find your son. We're going to get him in treatment. And the father was like, we're suburban, rich white people out in the enclave, far away from black folks. Nothing against you, but we live out here in a zip code that's just us. And I don't understand how you, the ex-gang member, ex-prisoner, is going to come to this neighborhood and find my son and convince him to go to treatment. We're going back and forth, and he's asking a ton of questions, just telling me that he's just not getting it. I said, listen, I'm in Phoenix. You're in LA. You're a 45-minute flight away. I can be there. I can get it done. We'll make it happen. It's free. Yeah. Plane, free. Yeah. You don't need a hotel? No. You don't need any information? No. Just give me his name and tell me where you usually hang out, and I'll take it from there. And you're not going to charge me? No. He couldn't understand what I was offering. It didn't make sense in his head. So he told me, let's
Right.
do it next week. Let's do it next week. I'm like, no, I'm already in Phoenix. I live in Atlanta. It's easier for me to do it now. It turned into next week. So that Friday he said next week. I said, fine. I'll fly back next week. His son OD'd that Sunday
And died.
and died.
Oh,
And the main thing is, I love the dad. I'm not mad at the dad. I say he couldn't understand Black ex-gang member, outreach worker, going to find his son in a suburban town and get him the treatment for free. Had I said it's going to cost you 15 grand, I need a round trip ticket on Delta, I need a room at the Marriott Marquis, I need this rental from Avis, and I'm going to charge you this amount of money. He'd have said, oh yeah, checked all the boxes and said go. I wasn't speaking his language. The lesson I learned from that is I need to speak the language of the people I'm trying to help.
meet people where
Instead
they're
of
at.
instead of telling him accept the help, I need to present myself better as the help.
Got it. Oh my gosh, you must have learned so much about helping people over 20 years.
28. The last 8 years of my sentence count too.
Yes, they do. Oh my goodness.
That was a PhD class.
Piled high and deep.
Buried high and deep.
Very high and deep. Oh my goodness. I have a few lightning round questions for you just for fun. Are you up for it?
I'm ready. I'm
Okay.
always up for fun.
Up for fun. I notice you have a lot of books behind you, so I'm going to ask you for your favorite self-improvement book.
As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Love it. Do you have a go-to mantra or quote that you live by?
Go-to mantra. Answer the question asked.
Answer the question asked. Okay. What is one thing that you wish you would have known when you first, I don't know, went to prison or started your
That I didn't have to go.
Kind of sounds like you did have to go.
I didn't have to go.
Okay.
Literally. One thing I wish I'd have known when I first went in is that I could have studied sooner. Even though I couldn't broke away from the gangs and that, I could have started studying sooner. There was nothing there was no prohibiting against reading. So I could have started reading and studying sooner.
It's my understanding you have lots of time to read in jail. Is that
No,
right?
you don't.
Oh, you
No,
don't?
In theory, you do. You wake up in the morning, you walk outside, you're with your gang from sunup to the end of the day. And then, so from like 7 a.m. to like 10 p.m., you're with the gang.
What are you guys doing all day?
I mean, whether it's we're working out, we're selling drugs, we're fighting people, we're plotting and scheming, you're with them.
Okay.
And it's
Nope,
like
nobody's reading.
Go back to high school. When you go out the door, you're with your friends all day.
Got it.
And you did what they did. And I could have made time for reading. I just didn't.
Right.
So even though I wouldn't have been able to go solo, I definitely could have read more.
Yeah. How hard was it to break away from your gang while in prison still?
You don't break away. You just distance yourself. You start doing things that benefit you. You don't do things that put yourself in risk. So I still know everybody I know from before.
You do.
I'm quite sure you know some people who are still in the streets or still in the life who aren't doing well. You don't unknow people. You just fix your own life.
Yeah.
And you hope that encourages them.
Yeah. Tell me something. Do you have like a, since my focus is typically on recovery from drugs and alcohol, I ask people if they have like a self-care routine. Do you have like a self-care routine, a morning routine that you?
My morning routine, I wake up in the morning. The first thing I do is I ask myself, who can I help today? That's my morning routine. It can't be about me. It has to be about somebody else or something else. What can I do today to help somebody or to help some cause or to help something? And that gives me I will get to me. By default, I will get to me. But I start my day with external. Who can I help? Who needs my help? Because when it's me, I can say, I'll get to it later. You know something? Right. I'm going to do it later. I mean, I don't have to do it right now. I can forgive myself. But if I'm obligated to you, then I have to show up. Like I was doing stuff. I said, I got to be home by 3:30 to do the Zoom. If it was a Zoom just for me, whatever I was doing, I'd have kept doing. I'd have kicked it back to 6 o'clock and it never would have happened.
Right, right.
So it's like, what can I do to help somebody else? So today, if nothing else, I'm doing this Zoom to try to spread information and inspiration that you can do and be better. So if this is my one thing for the day, Let's go.
You win. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you're going to help a lot of people. I mean, there's so many people that listen to the podcast that have, been in and out of jail or prison, and they're trying to rebuild their self-esteem and get their life together. And I'm sure some of them are going to want to get a hold of you. And I know that you have can we talk a little bit about I know you have this amazing book out, but you also have a program that's on your website. Can you tell me a little bit about Unlock Your Life and who it's for?
Unlock Your Life is for, I'll tell you where I got the name from first.
Okay. It's not from jail.
I'll tell you what it's about. Unlock Your Life is about freeing yourself from your past.
Oh, I like that.
That's what it is. I mean, a lot of us are stuck in our past, and we will tell you everything that didn't work and everything that went wrong and everything that went off the rails. I had the story. I grew up in the hood. I was on free lunch. Kids made fun of me. My dad wasn't there. I mean, I'm locked into that story.
Yeah.
And I just I give you all my dad, my mom, my sister was an addict, and my brother drank too much, and I'm locked into a story.
Mm-hmm.
Unlock the story and let it go.
Yeah. Then
build a life on the now. It's the thing I tell people. You have to let go of your yesterday. Mm-hmm. See, there's nobody's holding me in my yesterday except for me. I'm holding myself in the 14-year-old kid who didn't fit in. I'm holding myself into the 21-year-old person who didn't fit in. I'm holding myself into the 10-year-old person who saw the trauma. No, I don't have to. It happened, but I don't have to hold on to it.
Do you feel like getting that love and validation from your mentors to help you to let it go? Like they were like, yeah, it happened. It was real. It sucks. Like they validated your feelings so you could let it go.
It's always helpful to have collaborators and people who feed into you now. If you have that, that's great.
Yeah.
If you don't have that readily available to you, it's not an excuse to hold on to.
It is not.
I mean, I know my sister, letting go of her past was hard. She blamed her boyfriend for the longest time for her addiction. And then lo and behold, we got her boyfriend off of drugs. And it was like, oops, it wasn't him.
Right.
We got him clean and she didn't go right behind him. It was like, oops.
That awkward moment where you realize
but for 30 years, it was his fault.
Right.
And collectively, the family blamed him for her addiction.
Yeah.
Because it was easy. Let's blame him. But when we got him clean and she didn't go immediately behind him, it was like, oops. So Unlock Your Life is letting go of all the things that you've locked yourself in the room with negativity.
Mm-hmm. True story.
I was actually in a taxi or Uber, whatever you want to call it, in 2019 last year, and I was in the Netherlands. I went to the Netherlands to give a speech, and I was in a taxi going from the airport to some part of the Netherlands. It was like an hour ride, and I'm talking to the taxi driver, and he's from another country, someplace in the Middle East, and we're talking. He says, well, tell me about your story. And I was like, yo, I went to prison. I got my life there. And he said to me, you unlocked your life. You ever talk to people who don't speak English well, and they don't know the slangs or the proper way, so they say things in their native thought process, and they chop it up.
Right.
And he said to me, you unlocked your life. I was like, I like that.
That is so good. Yeah, it's amazing when that happens. I have to ask you, in the Netherlands, were you like the only Black person there?
It wasn't a lot of us. I wasn't the only Black person, but it wasn't a lot. They were hiding them. They had them, but they were definitely hiding them.
Right. I always thought that might be an interesting experience to go somewhere where you're not the predominant. Anyways, okay, so...
No, hold on. I didn't need to go to the Netherlands for that.
I know, right?
You might need to go someplace.
True story.
Out the front door.
I stand corrected. Yes, sir. Okay, but so is this Unlock Your Life? Is it an online class? Do people? Well, I guess people aren't showing up in person these days.
No, nobody's showing up. If you show up at somebody knocked at my door while it was on his thing. I'm not doing it. Get a mask, get some gloves,
right.
Go away. Email me.
Do it on Zoom.
Do it on Zoom. Zoom is my new best friend. But Unlock Your Life is something we create for people in need, whether it's a company or a family, if it's a community or a city agency, city government. We come and we create it. I don't sell cans. Nothing that I sell comes in a can.
Okay,
If
so
you want
that's not
something,
like
it's
a
designed for you.
wow. It
I
must be,
custom build everything.
got
I'm
it.
a licensed baker. I have a culinary arts degree and I bake from scratch. So
That
I don't do
is
nothing against Betty Crocker. I grew up on Betty Crocker. I make stuff from scratch
you
because
are an
everybody's different.
artist. Yes.
Everybody's different. Everybody has a
Yeah.
different set of issues. You
Yeah.
might have issues with your mom, but it was for one reason. I got issues with my mom. It was a different reason. So I don't say one size fits all.
Hmm.
So I don't have like this cookie cutter cartwheel thing that just cranks itself out. I don't have an online course or a coaching program. If you want Andre to work with you, it's going to be with you, and it's going
Wow,
to
got it.
be designed for you.
Hmm.
There might be some tenets that I've used before, but I'm coming and sitting down and I'm listening to you and your problems. I'm not saying, hey, does this fit? Try this. No.
Right. Yeah. No, I like that. As you said in the beginning, that listening is your superpower, which I think is a skill that is rare, but so precious. So, um, lucky you. And there's lots of people who want to talk. So,
Oh, I mean, now you can wear me out talking to me. I'm not doing, I'll make you say what you need to say. You're not just going to hold me hostage. You know what I'm saying?
right.
You just
Oh,
can't sit here and just like, oh, I'm going to talk for 3 hours and he's going to listen. No,
mm.
I'm going to help direct the conversation. Otherwise,
It
we'll be here for
never
like 9
occurred
hours.
to me. It never occurred to me for 1 second that you weren't in control of a conversation.
Yeah, we'll navigate the conversation because we have to get to a place of getting to a resolution.
Right. Yeah.
Some
Let's make
people are
some.
great at talking about the problem,
No, 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 no. Nobody cares about that.
but some people are great at explaining the problem.
Well, and I think that is the problem, right? It's like you don't get to the light by further investigation or endless investigation of the darkness, right? Let's get to the light.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
do you want my help to get better, or you want my help for you to tell this story again?
Yeah. I'm not into that either. That's a serious Drano on my brain. I don't like it. Well, Andre, listen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the
Oh,
podcast and talking to me about all this stuff. I think it'll be a great benefit to my listeners. And I will definitely leave links to your website. Is the best place to reach you at andrenorman.com, or is there
that is.
another?
My Instagram is at andrenorman.com or Facebook is Andre Norman. It's all the same.
It's all the
Then go
same.
to
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, website. I'm gonna or LinkedIn, whatever works for them works for me.
You
I
are
just want to
available.
say for your folks before I go,
Mm-hmm.
this conversation isn't inclusive of everything. This conversation is just a conversation about we care about you. And we know that it's hard out there. We know that you're struggling. Doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you're driving. You never know what somebody's going through, I learned. And we just want to let you know that somebody cares. There's two somebody's here and there's more somebody's. And you got to give us a chance. You just got to give us a chance. You don't have to do this by yourself. You don't have to try to push your way or muscle your way through it. Don't try to like, I got it covered. No, you have help, access and use your help. That's what allowed me to change my life around when I started accessing and using the help that was available to me, regardless if it looked like me or sounded like me. If it was credible and it was caring, it was consistent, and it was challenging, I was on board. And we just want you to be healthy. And don't take for granted your health or your state of mind for today because something's coming tomorrow that's going to push against you. So today's the day that you plan for tomorrow. And today's the day that you say, no, something, I feel good today. Well, let me reinvest in myself. I feel good today. Let me share it with somebody else. And the more people you share this with, the better you become and the stronger you become because you build your own network of people who can be there to help you. Because everybody that you help has the capacity to be there when you need help. So just know that you're loved. We
Those are the
appreciate you.
facts. Yes.
That's what they say in the penitentiary. Facts.
Oh,
Say
is that what
less
they
and
say?
facts. Yeah, they say facts.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I feel so hip all of a sudden.
So we love you. Never go it alone.
That's right.
Don't try to brave the wind by yourself. We're here for you. And regardless if we talked about your topic or not, we're talking to you right now. And you matter. We care about you. We want you to be healthy. Reach out, if not to us, to somebody, and give us a chance to help you have a better life. And we want to see you live your best life.
Amen. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Andre. I look
You're
forward to
welcome.
speaking with you again. Thanks so
Well,
much.
send me the link when we go live so I can share it with my friends.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't wait. I will absolutely send it out. Thanks so much. Let me just put this on pause.